heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of meager means. I have yet.
mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z.
Once again, this broadcast has been brought to you by mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z, where reading fundamental. Also brought to you by bindedbooks.com, where treasures are bound. Be sure to get all of your teas at My Son's Teas, the tea of teas, divinely prepared at herbsofmyaunt.com. Be sure to check out all of those musical stylings by Brian Hicks Bay at bhbaymusic.com. For your everyday items and religious regalia, be sure to check out morrishaberdasher.com. And for that everyday especial Morris drip, be sure to check out morsachi.com. And all of these companies are powered by ALO Design Pros. Design your online business strategy today.
No such thing as failure, baby. Don't forget who made you. You can't be thinking minor when you need to be thinking major. They made you think they saved you, but it can't nobody save you.
Peace, 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 peace. Peace, love, and light, nobles, empresses, all true light seekers. Welcome back to another Bbt Book Club. Let me get my screen right. I'm your host, Noble Moso L, Mufti of the Burning Bush Tabernacle, Science Temple and School. Excuse me, let me get this. This is the book that we're going to be going over today. Peace, 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 love and light, all nobles, all light seekers. Again, we're back every Friday. Burning Bush Tabernacle, Science Temple and School. We offer a plethora of books, wisdom, fitness, healing. You know, myself and our team, we have Herbs of Mayat, herbal teas. Get them from us all summer, all year round. We got herbal blends. We got fresh tea, dry herbs. We got a lot of blends and concoctions that we've been studying and using ourselves and working on. So I definitely encourage you to tap in with us at Herbs of Mayat, herbsofmayat.com. You can reach out directly to me if you need anything for healing. You know, we work out every Saturday and Sunday with our minister, Malik Reed L. And we really want brothers and sisters to come tap in and join us. But again, this is our book club, and we're breaking down one of our founders' books by Sheikh Khari Goodman Bey. And it goes by the name of Sufism and the Triple Rose of the Adept Chamber. And this book was gathered, compiled, and divinely prepared by Noble Khari Hakeem Goodman El Bey. And again, he's the founder of the Burning Bush Tabernacle, our sheikh, our map and guide. And we're thankful to have a brother, to take us this far. There's a lot of brothers and sisters using them, trying to understand this more science, trying to understand what it is, what it's not, what Sufism is, what Islam is, and what Americans' role and place is in spiritual systems. But as we know, the old time religions, as Noble Drew Ali talks about in his Circle 7 Quran, and this is the 101 questionnaire. And a lot of us need to, understand the high wisdom in the 101s and the Moorish Holy Quran. because there's history in it, there's spirituality, there's lessons. You know, there's so much high science in Moorish science, which has nothing synonymous to do with being a sovereign citizen and, you know, breaking away from the government and all these radical things that Noble Ali didn't teach and Sufis before him weren't teaching. You know, more science is for your family. More science is to help you become a better man, a better citizen, a better total individual, and be able to live in peace. You know, the 5 tenets of more science are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. You know, and we all should strive to live by these tenets. So again, it's Holy Friday. So before we get started, I was just going to touch on some of the things in the Quran. You know, it asks, what is our religion? And it says the religion is Islamism. Question 18 says, is that a new or is that the old time religion? And it says it is the old time religion. What kind of flag is the Moorish? What kind of flag is the Moorish? It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. Question 20 says, what do the 5 points represent? They represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. How old is our flag? It is over 10,000 years old. And which is our holy day? And it is Friday. Why? Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh, and it was on Friday when he departed out of flesh. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the 101s is something we all should have. You know, it's a lot of symbolism and high science in it, starting with the cover with Noble Ali on it, holding a Moorish woman, taking her out of the cares of the world. And as you know, we're dealing with this up until today with our mothers, our sisters, our aunts, trying to find ways to pull them out of the cares of the world and to uplift fallen humanity and uplift our fallen nation with love. So again, there's a lot of, you know, misunderstandings of what Moorish science is, what Sufism is, what type of Islam was brought for the American Moors or the American blacks or Negroes, misnomered. And we're just here to, you know, set the record straight, clear up the knowledge with scholarship. You know, this is not my belief. This is not my personal belief system. This is history, facts. You know, that was here before I came. You know, this wisdom on Sufism is just, you know, grossly misunderstood, and we want to clear it up. And that's what this book here, written by Sheikh Kari Hakim Goodman Bey, does. Breaks down Sufism and the triple rows of the adept chamber. And before I even start, I will break down some research I've done just simply on the word Sufi. Who or what is a Sufi? Sufism is, first of all, a series of knots. It is not a religion. It is not a philosophy, not even a mysticism, as that word is usually conceived. It is best to call Sufism a way of experiencing reality as love itself. It is best to call Sufism a way of experiencing reality as love itself. And this is the first tenet of Moorish science. Love, of the five pillars: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And it was a Sufi writer who said it well and succinctly. He said, Sufism is a unique phenomena of reality. The psychology of Sufism is Sufism itself. The art and science of Sufism is is the very practice of Sufism. This is just a book I picked up in my studies called the Sufi Book of Life. If you want any of these books on Sufism and spirituality, reach out to us. mypdfbooks.com. You can read right there on the ticker, or bindedbooks.com. But with no further ado, I'm going to break down a little bit of what Sheikh compiled in his book on Sufism and the Triple Rose. Sufism and the Triple Rose of the Adept Chamber, featuring the Commission Adept Manual and use of carpenter tools. The Holy Moorish Orthodox Church, which is what HMOC stands for, Adept Chamber, Third Paradise, had revealed its inner triplicity in announcing the formation of the three orders or degrees within itself are the Fatimid order, the Order of Jerusalem, and the Order of the Paraclete. Each of these orders as ecumenical and ecumenical just means representing the entire Christian world. So each of these orders representing the entire Christian world, radically tolerant and interfaith as the Moorish Orthodox Church itself. But each of them possesses, so to speak, a speciality. They represent the three Western monotheisms in their essential and esoteric harmony. Amenity of faiths is achieved through heresy, i.e., non-canonical interpretations of doctrine. These are the religions as the Moorish Orthodox Church views and experiences them in the light of Noble Drew Ali's Circle 7 Quran, which makes use of the esoteric Christian and Rosicrucian Apocrypha by a syncretic principle we have inherited. For us, the monotheisms are living, mutating entities, interpenetrate and mutually illuminative. This position has been called somewhat jocularly poly-religiosity. It owes something to paganism, which is not truly polytheistic, but rather a jumble of distinct cults and sects, recognizing a universalistic principle. of mutual validation. It also owes something of Nobuju Ali's synchronistic genius, and also to the position of Hazrat Khan, the Christian Sufi who practiced the harmony of faiths and whose teachings were incorporated into the Moorish Orthodox Church in the early 60s, 1960s, with the permission of certain surviving disciples in Delhi at the shrine of Nizmuddin Alua. And first is the Fatimid order, and it is primarily Islamic. Specifically, it deploys a spiritual initiatic affiliation with revolutionary Islamism in the transmission of the Hafiziyah, whose imams were caliphs of the Fatimid dynasty of Egypt, 1913 to 1171. This line supposedly disappeared and is not represented by any church in the world today other than the Fatimid order, which owes no allegiance to Nizraz or Qarmats or Boraz or other existent Ishmaelic sects. The order concerns itself with Hermeticism or Hermeticism in the Egyptian/Islamic tradition, and with the practice of initiatic dreaming, the Aswai Sufi tradition, which initiatic visions are sought without any authoritarian master and without tariqat affiliation, and with the study of revolutionary theory and praxis in Islamic history. The order follows a principle which might be called anarcho-monarchism, and considered each of its devotees as a pretender to the throne of an imaginal Egypt. Excuse me. So, the Fatimid order is a Sufi order. And it's one of the main houses that, through the three monotheistic religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. These are all houses of spiritual study that we all study. We don't gravitate to one to miss the essence of all the others. And next is the order of the Paraclete. The Order of Jerusalem. The Order of Jerusalem is Jewish, but specifically Judeo-Canaanite, or Hebreo-pagan, or Jewish magical in emphasis. Moreover, Jerusalem is the symbolic capital city of the three monotheisms, and thus of special interest to the Adept Chamber. Even as this article is published, the Order of Jerusalem is establishing itself in Jerusalem, where it will propagate or foster interests in the harmony and peace of faiths, the study of archaic Canaanite and other Holy Land religions and cults of the Topocosm, popular Kabbalism, and magic. The tradition of Sabbatean Sevi, the false messiah who converted to Islam in 1666, the Dome of the Rock, and the temple, symbolized by Baruch, the half mule, half angel beast that Muhammad rode to paradise, launching from the rock to seventh heaven. The Order of Jerusalem is also a chivalric order in that it awards all its members the title of Cheval of the Moorish Order of Jerusalem. The purpose of the Knights is to foster and protect the mission in Jerusalem and to work for peace through interfaith harmony. And third is the Order of the Paraclete. And the Order of the Paraclete is Christian, but since it admits potentially any form of Christianity, it is infinitely flexible and expansive. The Paraclete, the one who is to come, has been identified with Mohammed and also with the Holy Spirit. In the millenniums of Joachim of Fior, who saw an age of the Father law, and age of the Son, church, succeeded by an age of spirit, the utopian millennium, perfect freedom. As another millennium approaches, the OP, or Order of Paraclete, will function to give an exoteric interpretation and an outward manifestation to this ideal. Besides the Aquarian Jesus of the Circle 7 Quran, the following Christian themes play roles in the form of the Order of the Paraclete. They have the Brethren of the Free Spirits, the Adamites, the Begards, the Beguines, the Christian Kabbalists, the Alchemists, Hermeticists, Renaissance, Neoplatonism, and magic, the Celtic Church, and its links with paganism, certain forms of Gnosticism, the link to Egypt, radical Protestantism, the Anabaptists, the Family of Love, the Ranters, the Antinomians, the Diggers, William Blake Christian Druids, the revolutionary churches of Spence and Wedderburn, the religious cults of Charles Fournier, the New Catholic Pantarchy of Stephen Pearls Andrews, etc. The Wandering Bishops and the Autocephalous Churches movement, which played a major role in the original formation of the Moorish Orthodox Church. Hence the term Orthodox and our title of Metropolitan, for example. The emphasis on liturgy as magic defines the Orthodox, the Order of Paraclete praxis. Another major source of inspiration is the Spiritist tradition, the syncretism of Christianity and Hoodoo, African and Native ritual, iconography, magic, the single most creative source of spiritual strength in America today. So I know that was a mouthful, but this is all showing that, there's no one way to a spiritual system. These are all different houses that prepare your mind, prepare your spirit, prepare your body for a higher transformation. It's interesting that it speaks on hoodoo, because a lot of people are into, that film that came out, The Sinners, and I know it talks about has a lot of influence of our ancient traditions, and Moorish science is an encapsulation of all those traditions. Our Moorish bloodlines can be found on all four corners of the earth, in all spiritual houses, in all continents. So we all must understand that all this wisdom has a through line, has a silver lining. And that's what she eloquently broke down in this book, speaking on the history. So just to clarify, the essence of the sacred path of Sufism, it says that Islam, the religion of peace, is constantly linked by mass media with images of war, conflict, and terrorism. On almost daily basis, we are told of Islamic fundamentalism, Muslim extremists, and even Islamo-fascists. Islam is represented as monolithic, austere, and conservative, even puritanical. This false and misleading picture of Islam, so vigorously promulgated in the West, is extremely one-dimensional, focusing exclusively, as it does, on the narrow exoteric side of the religion. Little or no attention is given to Islam's fluid and multifaceted mystical dimensions. For just as there is an inner side to Christianity and Judaism, so there is to Islam. This subterranean tradition has always acted to counterbalance the forces of dogmaticism and dry formalism, constituting the inner core of Islam. It has been celebrated by the greatest Muslim poets and sages, from Al-Hajjaj and Ibn Arabi to Kemani, Rumi, and Hafiz. Mystics of Islam, do not attach yourself to any particular creed exclusively, so that you disbelieve all the rest. Otherwise, you will miss much that is good. Indeed, you will fail to see the real truth. God, the omnipotent and omnipresent, is not contained by any one creed, for he says in the Quran, wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah. And that was a quote by Sufi Grandmaster Ibn Arabi. Now, the mysticism or esotericism, called in Arabic tasawwuf, of Islam, is today identified with the Sufis, a word commonly thought to come from the Arabic suf, S-U-F, meaning wool, after the rough woolen robe worn by early Muslim mystics. However, there are several Muslim communities, such as the Ishmaels, the Qarmatans, the Alawis, and the Druze, who derive their doctrines and practices from Islamic esotericism. In the days of the Prophet Muhammad, there was no sharp distinction between esoteric and exoteric teachings of Islam. The Prophet instructed his inner circle, known as companions, in both the exoteric, zahir, the outer or apparent, and the esoteric, or batin, the inner or secret, meanings of the revelations he received from Allah. Although Prophet Muhammad, as the last of the messengers of God, was the repository of a complete treasure of precepts. He proclaimed only some of them publicly, leaving the rest undeclared. The prophet is said to have privately entrusted the undeclared precepts to select few of his companions, foremost among them Ali, so that they would progressively reveal them at appropriate junctures according to their wisdom, whether by inferring the particular from the absolute or the concrete from the abstract. Soon after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the Muslim community was riven with power struggles and a rising tide of legalism, which sought to suppress the mystical side of Islam. In the decades following the Prophet's death, Sufi orders grew in secret as disciplines known as murids, Murids, gathered around an individual master called murshid, sheikh, or pir, Pir, to receive personal instruction in esotericism. Thus, the inner teachings of Islam survived to become crystallized principally in Sufism. And you can see this concept with our brothers from Senegal. You know, they Sheikh Amadou Bamba, one of the most well-known sheikhs because of what he did spiritually and non-violently with the invasion of the French into Senegal and Mali. And so Sufism has a rich Moorish root. And even when you may think it's Arab, you know, the original Arab can be traced back to the Arap, which means a person of dark skin. So to continue, it says, no man can be said to have originated Sufism. No one knows who the first Sufi was. Sufism is not a religion and ultimately exists above and beyond all labels. It is said Sufism is older than Islam and that it really had no beginning, being just the latest flowering, taking on the form of Islam, of the ancient secret tradition stretching back to Adam. A Sufi tradition relates how the seeds of Sufism were sown in the time of Adam, fermented in the time of Noah, budded in the time of Abraham, and began to develop in the time of Jesus, and produced pure wine in the time of Muhammad. Prophet Muhammad and Jesus are revered as the greatest Sufis. Sufi masters like Ibn Arabi and Shura Wadi studied Plato, Pythagoras, declaring the pagan sage to be Sufis. Journey to the Orient. I looked for him on the Christian cross, but he was not there. I went to Hindu temples and shrines, but nothing. I visited the Kaaba in Mecca. I did not find him. I questioned learned scholars, but he outstripped them. He outstripped their understanding. And finally, when I peered into my own heart, there and nowhere else was his home. That's a quote by the poet Jalaluddin Rumi, the Sufi master and poet. And that quote is summed up in More Science is, where's the closest place to find Allah? And it will say, look inside your heart. So in the 19th century and early 20th centuries, many of Europe's leading esoterics traveled to the Muslim East in search of ancient wisdom. As Jocelyn Goodwin, a leading authority on the history of Western esotericism, explains, the initiatic journey to Islamic soil has been a repeated theme of European esotericism. Ever since the Templars, ever since the Knights Templars settled in Jerusalem and the mythical Christian Rosicrucius learned his trade in Damakar or Damascus, we find it in the lives of the Paraclesus and Cagliostro. Then, as travel became easier, and a whole host that included P.B. Randolph, H.P. Blavatsky, Max Theon, G.I. Gurdjieff, and Aleister Crowley, Ren Guion, R.A. Squaller, D. Lubick, and Henry Corbin. There was very likely some element of this in Napoleon's Egyptian campaign of 1797, when he announced to the astonished audience that he too was a Muslim, then returned to Paris to convene the Jewish Sarhadin and to reinstate the Christian clergy. In Egypt, during the mid-1800s, Madame Blavatsky studied Sufism, Coptic Christianity, and the Druze order, which she described as the last survival of archaic wisdom, claiming to be a student of her master, Serapis Bey. While in Cairo, Madame Blavatsky met Jamal ad-Din al-Afghani, an outstanding Muslim thinker, radical political leader, and Sufi teacher. She also traveled widely, often in Muslim dress, in the company of Albert Rawlson, who would later write an account of his initiation by the Druze for Blavatsky's book, Isis Unveiled. Rawson was one of the founders of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine, a secret society incorporating principles and symbols drawn from Islamic mysticism. He also wrote favorably about Gnosticism and called for a new church of humanity that should be broad and comprehensive, embracing many diverse elements, all working together for the common good, revealing to ordinary people the extraordinary attributes of their own nature by exemplifying before them the transcendent heights and depth of the human soul. Another influential spiritual teacher who journeyed through Muslim lands in search of hidden knowledge was George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. He spent much of his life in Central Asia, where he encountered Sufi brotherhoods and learnt of their texts, particularly the Walled Garden of the Truth, composed in the 12th century by Sufi master Hakim Sinai of Ghazana. According to the authors of the teachers of Gurdjieff, Hakim Sana''s book influenced Gurdjieff's own writings. One of Gurdjieff's prominent students, J.G. Bennett, believed the origins of Gurdjieff's system can be traced to the Sufis of Central Asia. While many people are familiar with Madame H.P. Blavatsky and G.I. Gurdjieff, few are aware of the mystic teacher who is credited with laying the foundation of the spread of Islam among Black Americans. Early in the 20th century, Noble Drew Ali, born Timothy Drew, the self-taught son of former black slaves, took a job as a merchant seaman and found himself in Egypt. According to the legend, Noble Drew Ali traveled around the world before the age of 27 in an effort to discover all he could about the heritage of his people and the tenets of Islam. It is commonly believed he received a mandate from the King of Morocco to instruct black people in Islam. At the Pyramid of Cheops, he received initiation and took the Muslim name Sharif Noble Abdul Ali. In America, he would be known as Noble Drew Ali. On his return to the United States in 1913, he founded the Moorish Science Temple to uplift fallen humanity by returning the nationality, the divine creed, and culture to the persons of Moorish descent in the Western Hemisphere. Because we know that those taken, stripped 2/5 that were taken from the enslaved Moorish people was their nationality and their divine creed. So Noble Drew Ali was coming to restore those. That's why he's very different than most leaders in the Americas. Point blank. And he was a charismatic leader. Noble Drew Ali taught that the true origin of Black Americans was Asiatic, and Islam their original religion. The fallen sons and daughters of the Asiatic nation of North America, he wrote, need to learn to love instead of hate, to know of their higher self and lower self. Allah, the one true God, has been known by many names, but everywhere his is the causeless cause, the rootless root, from which all things have grown. Noble Drew Ali acknowledged Prophet Muhammad as the founder of the reuniting of Islam, and the promise one foretold by Jesus. All prophets came with basically the same message, and Islam was the original divine faith to which Muhammad called people to return. Through his message, thousands of Black Americans were exposed to Moorish history, culture, religion, as well as the Islamic principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. But his meteoric success brought disaster. Noble Drew Ali died in 1929, in the words of one commentator. Some say from severe police beatings. Others say he was assassinated by his rivals in the moment. In his sincerity and undoubted innocence, Noble Drew Ali met a martyr's end. One of the most intriguing and mysterious organizations to emerge from the Moorish Science Temple established by Noble Drew Ali is the MOC, or Moorish Orthodox Church. Founded in the late 1950s by European Americans who had obtained Moorish Science Temple passports as Celts, or Persians, the Moorish Orthodox Church attracted a bohemian element. A Moorish Orthodox Church document posted on the internet states they're committed to the universal spirit, hidden anywhere, revealed in all cultures, always occult and dissident, an invisible college, embracing East and West, but rejecting all official, stultifying consensus reality. Today, the foremost spokesman for the Moorish Orthodox Church is Peter Lamborn Wilson, a gifted writer an expert on the mystical dimensions of Islam. He is known for his books, The Drunken Universe, Scandal, Essays in Islamic Heresy, and Sacred Drift. And we have all these books. If you would like to get them, please reach out to us. And Wilson writes, from experience, having spent many years living among Sufis and diverse Muslim communities in Asia and the Middle East. You know, it's really imperative that we learn more about Timothy Drew, who was Noble Drew Ali, who brought this message to our people of the Americas. You know, a lot of times we look outside of our own community for our leaders, for our saviors, for our sages, for our priests, our prophets. But Noble Drew Ali came to the Americas, born in North Carolina, established in New Jersey, up and down the East Coast, Midwest. Excuse me. So again, this more science and Sufism is definitely worth you checking out and understanding, because all these spiritual systems have a through line from Christianity to Islam to Judaism. And in my understanding of history, you know, a lot of these religions were in harmony in Spain, in Al-Andalusia, you know, before 1492 in the 1400s. And in many regions of the world, many spiritual systems could coexist because there was an understanding. And if I feel that understanding has been lost in the world we're in today, with people arguing over origins. But scholars know that all spiritual systems have a connections. You know, they all have a commonality. And if you can open up your heart and your mind to understand that, it'll give you peace. But to continue, I want to read this part right here. It talks about, you know, some of the Europeans and white people who traveled to the Orient or traveled to Moorish African lands, Moorish lands to learn deeper spiritual wisdom. You know, there's a great movie called Lawrence of Arabia. I challenge anyone to, you know, check out. And it shows, you know, this British officer who, you know, wants to understand more about the war between the Moors of Morocco and, you know, Britain. So he ends up becoming a part of the Moorish military and fighting on their side, you know, and strategizing with them. You know, that, and a lot of his British, you know, soldiers and you know, fellow British men, you know, they're looking at him like he's crazy. They're like, how could this man be wearing Islamic garb and eating the food of these people and, you know, embracing so much of their culture, which white Europeans thought was, you know, so opposite of what they knew and understood. But you know, Moorish culture is the foundation of all civilizations, with love, you know, not saying it's better than anyone's, but the Moorish culture has brought so much to the world through agriculture, through spirituality, through science, health and wellness, you know, books, so much. So it was a British, so as I said, it was a British officer who was a British Sufi. His name was Sir Richard Burton, a contemporary of Madame Blavatsky, was a British explorer and spy master who fell in love with Islam and with Moorish culture. He memorized huge portions of the Quran and was so expert in abstruse points of Islamic theology that he could pass as a Muslim scholar. Remember today, remember today for his incredible exploits and magnificent translations of the Arabian Nights and the Kama Sutra. Burton was also the first European to perform the pilgrimage to Mecca as a convert to Islam, and his fellow British officers called him the White Nigger and that devil Burton because of what they considered his odd beliefs and strange practices. The spiritual quest was central to Richard Burton's life. His biographer, Edward Rice, tells us Burton's adult life was passed in a ceaseless quest for the kind of secret knowledge he labeled broadly as gnosis, by which he hoped to uncover the very source of existence and the meaning of his role on earth. This search led him to investigate the Kabbalah, alchemy, Roman Catholicism, and a Hindu snake caste of the most archaic type, and the erotic way called Tantra. After which he looked into Sikhism and passed through several forms of Islam before settling on Sufism, a mystical discipline that defies simple labels. He remained a more or less faithful practitioner of Sufism teachings the rest of his life, seeking the mystical heights denied all by the eclect or elite, what certain Muslims define as insani kamal, the perfect man who has attained the most profound spiritual goals. For Burton, Sufism was the most pure form of gnosis, the secret knowledge passed down from the ancients, the Zoroastrians, the Hindu yogis, the Platonists, and the Essenes. The followers of the secret path having continued up to the present time under diverse mystical appellations, with the tenets modified by the age in which they live. They formed from the archetypes of existence a regular system of spiritual creation, interior to the material. Early in his military career, Richard Burton learned to keep certain opinions and interests to himself and became a master of the Shia Muslim practice known as taqiyya, dissimulation or concealment, in which one's private religious practices are kept hidden. This practice can be traced back to the Prophet Muhammad and even further to the Gnostic communities of the early centuries of the Christian era. Many of Burton's biographers ignore or play down his spiritual pursuit, principally the several years he spent among Ismailis, who derived from the medieval Assassins, and his initiation into the Qadri order, a Sufi brotherhood. So again, this is just showing the influence that Moorish spirituality had on people all over the world of opposite cultures, people of European descent, British, French, Napoleon, supposedly converted to Islam, and it has to be so much more than the modern Islam that we were taught, through films and propaganda through the media and news. You know, Sufism has a deep, rich root that can help people of all walks of life, all nationalities and all races. It's no discrimination. It's a spiritual study. And this Britishman, Richard Burton, traveled literally to the ends of the earth to learn. So it has to be some value. We're about at an hour right now, nobles and empresses and all light seekers listening. So I'm gonna stop there. Again, we encourage you to reach out and get some of the books that we offer. This is one of the Sheik's books. When I was breaking down, it's called Sufism and the Triple Rows of the Adept Chamber. I really welcome you to tap in, reach out to me and get this book. You can email me at herbsofmayat@herbsofmayat.com. Or you can even email us directly, the Burning Bush Tabernacle. Again, you know, this is our Bbt Book Club every Friday. Thank you for all who joined in and tapped in. Join us on Saturdays for Adept class and Sundays for Sunday school. And we work out before each one of those classes if you want to tap in with us. And again, I thank all who took the time to listen. You know, reach out to us. BBT Science Temple on Instagram, Facebook. And I appreciate all the listeners. We're going to keep going over our Moorish information. We have a plethora of books, a library on all topics: business, health, finance, nutrition. You know, the BBT is a one-stop shop. So I truly welcome you all to tap in with us. With that, I say peace, 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 love, and light.
I'm a spirit speaking, truth seeking, heart reaching, knowledge leaking, seeds sowing, harvest reaping, man of neither means. I have yet.
mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z.
Once again, this broadcast has been brought to you by mypdfbooks.com. That's books with a Z, where reading fundamental. Also brought to you by bindedbooks.com, where treasures are bound. Be sure to get all of your teas at My Son's Teas, the tea of teas, divinely prepared at herbsofmayat.com. Be sure to check out all of those musical stylings by Brian Hicks Bay at bhbaymusic.com. For your everyday items and religious regalia, be sure to check out morrishaberdasher.com. And for that everyday especial Morris drip, be sure to check out morsachi.com. And all of these companies are powered by ALO Design Pros. Design your online business strategy today.
No such thing as failure, baby. Don't forget who made you.